the average person probably even listening to this right now is in that $100,000
Yep.
range,
Hmm.
a little bit above, a little bit below. So
Yep.
yeah, just to add some
Yeah.
context to that, can you talk about the prenup? Is it necessary for that? And if so,
Yeah.
how do you go about that?
Yeah, I think that's where the kind of the frame is, because people are just not aware of it. And so, like
Yep.
I said, first I have to have a lot of married friends, which a handful of them are married, but they don't even know the education behind the prenup.
Yeah. So let's talk about the fact that, yeah, this is not a conversation for the wealth class. And I think ultimately people feel that way because of the way it's been framed by those of us in the media. The very first prenup I drew up was for one of my sorority sisters, who, between her and her future husband, didn't even bring in 200, not didn't even, but they were not clearing $200,000 between the two of them. And a prenup was a very good idea for them. Why? The gentleman brought in a couple assets into the marriage. And listen, most states and family law, which is what we're talking about, right, guys? Anytime you're talking about spousal support, which is another word for alimony, child support, these things, prenups, those are all governed by local jurisdictions, meaning state by state. And most states have basic statutes or laws in place that say when you bring assets to the relationship or the marriage, those are considered separate property pieces and they will be protected anyway. But why risk it, right? Because then facts get conflated. Where, because in this case of this young woman in my story, she was going to be moving into his house that he had already owned in, indeed, was still had a mortgage on it, but it was deeded to him singularly. So we would like to believe that it would be designated as separate property, but why risk it? So go ahead. That's something you want to put in a prenup. Something else to put in a prenup. What happens to your pensions? A lot of people in this conversation right now have great jobs from various municipalities and government. We're talking about people in law enforcement, people that are teachers, people that are in nurses, whatever it is. You want to make sure those things are designated. So yes, when you're specifically in that kind of like 65 to like $125,000 income range, prenups are for you. Let me be very clear. Prenups are for you. It allows you to designate, whether they're separate property, income properties that people might come into the relationship with. Because otherwise, if it goes left, or even if it goes halfway left, now it's a problem. Now it's messy. Now it's, well, I've added a new roof to a house that's in your name only. Where does that leave me? How do I recoup the equity that the home has grown in the 7 years I've been here contributing to the mortgage, or even paying the mortgage outright? See what I'm saying? So that's where a prenup is helpful. Now, child support. Child support, totally separate, meaning you don't even have to be married, as many people find out, to be designated somebody who's going to be responsible for child support. That has to do with the fact that you are legally the father. And let me be clear here. This is why paternity tests are very important. And I know, again, they're not sexy. How do you ask somebody you've been having sex with, probably unprotected, probably for some at the time, yo, I need you to get a paternity test, rather? Well, here's the problem when you don't do that. After a year in most jurisdictions, you are presumed to be the father. Like if you're the husband, you're presumed to be the legal father. And let's say you're not the biological father. After a year, if you have not made that case legally in the court, you're on the hook financially. Child till 18. Yeah, period. So that also, you're not married. Young lady says the baby's yours. You say, okay, I'm gonna take it on the chin. I'm gonna be a man, step up to it, whatever your situation. You find out again after that year of time is run out. All the while, you were not the biological father. Too late, unless the new actual biological father is willing to take that legal responsibility voluntarily, which is very high risk. Because the government's position is, we're not trying to pay out Social Security or any other financial assistance to this child who, through our eyes, had a father upon birth. So y'all figure it out. That's the government's mentality around it. So you got to really be willing to ask some unromantic questions and really do some unromantic things if fiscal stability is the priority.
Inflation is higher than ever. Rent is higher than ever. We talked about this. We put a pin in it. But how much is enough money for each state? I know sometimes we'll say how much is needed to survive, but I think it would be great from your perspective, from your lens and your viewpoint. Like, how much does each person need to be financially comfortable or free?
I think in New York, just because, again, I've been having this conversation recently with a lot of folks, and folks, by the way, that are not in our industry. Let's be clear. I think a lot of times when we have this conversation kind of amongst ourselves as industry peers, to third parties listening in. It's like, okay, well, they're talking about, when they're sitting around talking to Charlemagne and Yee and, Weezy and Mandy and them. No. I'm talking about outside of
all
our,
of them.
right? It's shout out to all of them.
Yeah, shout out to all of them. It's family.
Rich motherfuckers. We love you dearly. And now let's talk about some people that are not necessarily in that space, right? So people that are out here working jobs or in smaller businesses. The number is about 300 grand in New York, to be candid. When we start really talking about it, it takes about 300,000, somewhere like that. If you're making 250, you're living very comfortably. If you're making a little more, very comfortably. Once you get to me above the 800,000, now you're starting to talk about being in the upper middle class of a New York City or a DC or an LA. But if you're talking about those big metropolitans, San Francisco, LA, New York,
Miami.
Miami a bit, but I would say Miami is probably a little more on par with DC, where I would say 250, you should be better. But I only say that because of the housing. I'm only talking about places where your starter house, your 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo in New York is $1 million. In LA, your 2, maybe 3-bedroom, 1-bath, maybe 1.5-bath bungalow starter home is $1 million. So that's kind of where this is coming from. So if you want to kind of be in that starter home position, you want to enjoy the amenities of living in those cities. Well, nobody has to live in New York, right? And we get that all the time as New Yorkers, and I'm sure people in LA hear it in San Francisco, right? Why would you choose to live in one of the most expensive cities in the world? Well, because of the amenities, because I like being able to hop on a train and go one stop to Midtown and go to see a Broadway show. The Wiz is coming in a couple of weeks. Like that type of stuff matters to me. I like being able to go and have, a 6-course meal at Michelin star restaurants. Those amenities are why you're here. But guess what? You're not enjoying any of those amenities if you're making $150,000 a year. I know that because I've made $150,000 a year and lived in New York at one period of time. And I'm not going to be so kind of out of touch to say a struggle, as in I didn't think I knew where my next meal was coming from, but it was not eating out 3-4 times a week and running up bar tab. It just wasn't that. It wasn't going on vacations. It just wasn't that lifestyle. So if you like that, you need a good 300,000 in those metropolitans. Now let's go to some other places where we know our people are. Let's go to Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's go to Atlanta. Let's go to Durham, North Carolina. Let's go to maybe some other places in in California. They are not San Francisco or LA, kind of mid parts of that state, and whatever, even Chicago, right? I think if you're making a couple $100 grand, even like probably 175 to 225, you should be living very well in those cities.
For sure. That's why you're the voice of reason.
Big facts.
Yeah, I mean, I stop me when I start lying or sounding crazy, but that's what I've lived, and that's when I have conversations.
It's true.
That's what it is. So I think when we even talk about who the wealth class is, I think that even has to be adjusted for, right? A lot of us out here are just approaching the space where we're really entering that part of the conversation. So again, if we're talking about that level of income, why then would it make a lot of sense if we started this whole conversation, guys, with marriage specifically being a business transaction where you are jointly liable for both assets and liabilities? Why would a woman making $5 to $1 million of income a year be desirous of financially partnering with a very lovely gentleman who made $150,000 a year? And $150,000 a year is a lot of money. And in a lot of places, you could do a lot with it. But that $150 doesn't even probably touch that woman's tax liability. So now, and it's not just what that looks like. And I think a lot of people think that when they hear, especially Black women say that, it's like, oh, well, you just want to run to your little sorority events and your little, this gala and your Jack and Jill and all this shit and flex. No, we're talking about when it's time to put this child in Dalton or this other private school, what you got on it?
Cost.
What do you have on it, sir?
So let's go half on it.
Can you give me 40% on it? And it's going to be difficult when it's 160 coming in the door from you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
When my daughter's wanting to go on her ski trip with her fucking friends whose dad is Jamie Dimon, what do you have on it?
Ski trip may hit you for 17,000.
Easy.
So,
Easy.
and see, this is the part, right? So now y'all got me all riled up. Thanks, fellas. But this is the part of the conversation that, you know, the nuance is found. Now, you could say, well, who the hell needs all that? And that's true. Nobody needs to go on ski trip. Nobody needs ballet lessons. Nobody needs lacrosse classes. But if that is your desire, and I'm gonna really piss the people off. If that's how God has called you to live, then why is that so demonized? There's a way to live out here, period. And when our favorite rappers and ball players do it, everybody celebrates it. But when you're just a regular comm major from A&T or
that works hard
engineering major from FAMU, you get shitted on because you aspire to live that way. And I don't like it. I don't like it.
We don't have to.
No, that's a fact. Wow, a lot to talk about there. But hey, I want to give a shout out to the AKAs. I believe
shout out to the AKAs. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. The pinky has gone up. I saw
that. The pinky's in full salute. Yeah.
Full salute.
We recently got honored by the AKAs, and my grandmother was an AKA.
I saw that, the honor. Yeah. Well, you guys listen. I have a girlfriend who is got it, you know, she's one of these great Black women, right? The MBA, she's looking at doing some career transitioning, actually coming from the nonprofit space, getting into more of the financial advising sector. And one of the first resources, she's like, where are some resources? I said, on your leisure. Boom. Like, just start there. Because if you're talking about where the culture is kind of baseline consuming this information and educating themselves and trying to either enter this conversation or expand and elevate it, it is right here in this. It's you guys. You guys have branded that in a way that is unmatched, and y'all know that. So, you know, it means a lot. I'm glad to hear the Soars are honoring it and you know, giving you your flowers because you deserve them.